Katy Perry has always stood out for her bold music, vibrant image, and larger-than-life personality. But lately, something feels different. Fans have started noticing subtle shifts, fewer standout moments, mixed reactions to her recent work, and growing conversations online questioning what's really going on behind the scenes. Is this just a rough patch, or is something deeper unfolding?
I so badly want to be Catherine Hudson that I don't even want to look like Katy Perry anymore sometimes. I cut my hair is because I really want to be my authentic self. So it hurts. I don't feel like I can.
What started as a lighthearted moment quickly turned into something far more serious. It began with a joke, something that, under normal circumstances, would have come and gone within hours. A post circulated online showing Katy Perry poking fun at Justin Bieber after his Coachella headline performance. Bieber had incorporated nostalgic clips from his early YouTube days into his set, creating an emotional full-circle moment for fans. Perry responded with a sarcastic remark on Instagram, joking that she was grateful for YouTube Premium so she wouldn't have to sit through ads. It was classic Katy Perry humor, quick, playful, and harmless. But once the post was picked up and shared widely, things took an unexpected turn. That's when Ruby Rose entered the conversation. Her response wasn't playful. It was serious, and it immediately shifted the tone. She publicly accused Katy Perry of inappropriate behavior from years earlier, describing an alleged incident that reportedly took place in Melbourne. The details she shared were graphic, specific, and impossible to ignore. The internet reacted instantly. At first, people weren't sure how to process it. But as Ruby continued posting, adding more details and explaining why she had stayed silent for so long, the story gained momentum. She claimed the incident happened when she was in her early 20s and said it took years to fully process what she experienced. She also stated that she had evidence and witnesses, even going as far as to challenge Perry to take legal action. Within hours, what began as a joke had escalated into a global controversy. The timing only made things more intense. Katy Perry had recently been highly visible in the public eye, attending Coachella and making headlines for her personal life. Her presence was strong, confident, and upbeat, making the sudden shift into controversy even more jarring. As the story spread, the pressure mounted for a response. It didn't take long. Katy Perry's team released a statement, short, direct, and carefully worded. The allegations were described as completely false and labeled as dangerous and reckless lies. The statement didn't attempt to soften the situation or leave room for interpretation. It drew a clear line. But there was something else about the response that stood out. The language felt precise, almost legal in tone. Words like categorically false and references to past behavior hinted at a strategy beyond simple denial. It wasn't just about defending her reputation, it felt like positioning for something more serious, possibly even legal action. Then, unexpectedly, Katy Perry posted something herself. Instead of directly addressing the accusations, she shared the cover of her song By the Grace of God on Instagram with just 3 words, "I love you." No explanation. No context. Fans immediately began reading into it. Some saw it as a message of strength. Others believed it was directed at the situation. A few interpreted it as a quiet signal to her supporters. Whatever the meaning, it became her only personal response during the controversy. And that silence spoke volumes. Because behind all of this, Katy Perry hasn't had the smoothest run recently. Her latest album didn't receive the strongest reception. Some of her professional choices sparked criticism, and her personal life has remained under constant public attention. While her tour has been financially successful, public perception hasn't fully recovered. So when this situation exploded, it didn't happen in isolation, it landed in the middle of an already complicated period. Then things escalated even further. Authorities in Australia confirmed that a formal investigation had been opened related to the allegations. What started as a viral moment online had now crossed into a legal process. The case was described as a historical matter, and while details remained limited, the involvement of law enforcement changed everything. At that point, the story split into 2 realities. One existed online, fast-moving, emotional, and driven by reactions, opinions, and speculation. The other moved quietly in the background, slower, more controlled, and focused on evidence. That difference matters. Because once an investigation begins, public opinion becomes less important than what can actually be proven. Every claim, every denial, and every past detail starts to carry more weight. Meanwhile, both sides went quiet. Ruby Rose stated she would no longer discuss the matter publicly due to the ongoing investigation. Katy Perry remains silent beyond her team's statement. And with that, the conversation entered a strange phase, loud online, but limited in confirmed facts. Still, the internet didn't slow down. As the story spread, additional claims began surfacing online from other individuals sharing their own experiences. These posts gained traction quickly, amplified by social media. But there was one critical issue: none of those claims were independently verified. And that's where things become complicated. In situations like this, information moves faster than confirmation. The line between fact and speculation starts to blur, making it harder to separate what's real from what's simply being repeated. At this stage, only a few things are certain: an allegation has been made, a denial has been issued, and an investigation is underway. Everything else remains uncertain. Then, another layer was added. Old claims involving actor Josh Kloss resurfaced, bringing renewed attention to an incident he had previously described years earlier. He spoke again about an uncomfortable moment he says left a lasting impact on him, explaining that he had struggled with it privately for years before choosing to speak publicly. His story, like others, added complexity but also more questions. Because each new claim doesn't just add information. It adds perspective, memory, and interpretation. And over time, those elements can shift. That became even clearer when an old article written by Ruby Rose resurfaced. In that earlier piece, she described a night out in Melbourne involving heavy drinking and an embarrassing moment, but framed it very differently from her current account. At the time, she characterized the night as chaotic but not traumatic, even saying nothing serious had occurred. Now, years later, the same night is being described in a completely different way. That contrast doesn't provide answers, but it does highlight something important. Memory evolves. Perspective changes. And when events are revisited years later, they can be understood in ways that feel very different from how they were originally experienced. This doesn't prove or disprove anything. But it does show how complicated situations like this can become, especially when they rely heavily on personal recollection. Adding to the challenge is the fact that the location tied to the alleged incident no longer exists. The nightclub where it reportedly happened has since closed, meaning physical evidence is unlikely to be available. Any security footage would have been erased long ago, leaving little beyond personal accounts. So what remains? Words, memories, statements, and an investigation that now has to work through all of it. At its core, this story is no longer just about Katy Perry or Ruby Rose. It's about how quickly situations can escalate in the digital age. A single comment can turn into a global headline within hours. A joke can lead to serious accusations. And once something reaches that level, it becomes difficult to control. For fans, it creates uncertainty. For those involved, it brings pressure. And for everyone watching, it raises questions about truth, accountability, and how stories unfold in real time. Right now, the situation is unresolved. What happens next won't be decided by social media, but by what investigators are able to uncover. Evidence, witness accounts, and legal processes will shape the outcome far more than online discussions ever could. Until then, everything remains in a holding pattern. A story that started with a joke has turned into one of the most talked about controversies of the moment, yet also one of the least clear. And that's what makes it so difficult to navigate. If you found this breakdown helpful and want more deep dives into stories that go beyond the headlines, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Prestige Buzz, and hit the bell notification so you never miss an update.